Hey guys, so this is a video that I have thought about doing for a while, or at least planned on doing for a while, but every time that I think about actually going to start it, I just haven't been able to pick up the camera and do it. It's hard to talk into the camera and it's hard to be vulnerable. I'm really good at being vulnerable about past things that I've worked through and kind of have figured out. It's a little bit harder to be vulnerable with things that you're currently going through. And even though I have practice doing that, it's usually in the form of writing, because with writing, I can just write down whatever I want, edit it how I need to, and get the message across that I'm trying to get across. For whatever reason, saying something out loud versus writing it down, there's a huge difference. Saying it out loud makes it a lot more real. And as you can tell, I'm nervous. I've been biting my lip all morning. Just because it's not fun, I think, to talk about things sometimes. But as most of you know, or if you don't know or haven't seen the post yet, we announced that we are pregnant and I'm in 12 weeks. See, it's weird. It's hard to talk about. But I kind of want to talk about what that has looked like for me and what I hope it will look like going forward, and kind of just the whole process behind all of it. So in order to do that, I feel like I have to jump back in time a little bit. A little bit over a year ago, Jeffrey and I decided that we wanted to start trying for a family. And I've heard, that it can be hard to get pregnant. I don't think I realized the extent of how hard it really is. I was lucky enough to get pregnant pretty quickly. In December of last year, we found out they were pregnant only, 2 to 3 months after we started trying. And it's kind of just that extreme excitement and oh my goodness, this is everything that I've ever wanted, blah, blah, blah. In my case, everything I never knew I wanted. And then pretty quickly after that, we found out that we lost it. And that was a really hard blow for me. Ever since I've gotten clean, my life has just gone up, up, up. Okay, like I was saying, ever since I got clean, my life just continually got better and better and better, and I never really had any hard life experiences. And so to lose that first pregnancy, I struggled with that big time. And it was right at the same time that I had quit my job and I had started staying home literally that week. That was my first week home with the dogs. I lost this baby, and it was just a perfect storm for what I call situational depression. I was at home, wasn't out and about with people. I didn't have to get dressed or put makeup on or brush my hair or take a shower if I didn't feel like it. And so I got stuck in this pit of isolation and just feelings and sadness that I didn't really know how to get out of. And it took a while. I would say probably 6 months of trying to feel my way through these feelings without stuffing them, but also not wanting to talk to anybody about it. I had a really hard time when people I knew got pregnant, not out of jealousy. There's nothing but happiness for them, but my own sadness overwhelmed all of that happiness that I could have felt for them. And so it made it really hard to maintain some relationships, because in order for me to heal, I couldn't be around that. And that was a choice I had to make for myself. And I'm okay with that, and I'm at peace with that. I don't love that that's the way that I felt I needed to deal with it, but it is what it is, and like, that's life. So I would say around June, I finally started getting out of the rut of just extreme anxiety about it. And, you know, I had been obsessing and compulsing from December to June. You know, each cycle my life lived, you know, from December to June, I lived by my cycle. And some of this may be TMI, and if you're a dude and you don't really want to hear this, you might want to click out now. But I lived by my cycle, and it was constantly testing to see if I was ovulating, testing to see if I was pregnant, and I just lived in this continual, like, cycle, no pun intended, of testing. And so I was, like, hiding pregnancy tests because I knew that I was taking it to the extreme, and, like, I didn't want Jeffrey to know, but I couldn't stop. I was obsessing and compulsing on it. And having a background in addiction and understanding how that works, like, I knew exactly what it was. I just was unwilling to kind of do anything about it. And I remember I made a post about it one day, and I think it was a post I called Beautiful Amazon Package or something. And that was, like, kind of the realization that this is a problem and I should probably work on it. I don't want to say it went away overnight after that, but I did start getting better. And by June, I was stopping the obsessing and compulsing, and I wasn't just living in this constant, like, need to get pregnant, I guess. And so we went on vacation. We went out to Seattle to see Jeffrey's family and go to his high school reunion. And lo and behold, the following month in July, we found out we were pregnant again, which was super exciting. And it's like all these feelings rush back, and it's, you know, I was scared but super excited. And then again, very shortly after that, we found out that we lost it as well. And it was like another huge blow to know that this life that could have been, like, all the potential and all the things that you think about for not only your own future, but somebody else's future, is just gone. And while it hurt just as badly, I knew and recognized where I could have let myself go if I wasn't careful. And so I made really, I made a big deal about making sure I didn't follow that same path of, like, depression that I had fallen into the last time. I talked about it. I was open about how I was feeling. And at that point, I kind of decided that I needed a break mentally and physically from all of this, because it's draining. It's very emotionally draining. It's hard when you're putting your husband on the spot, like, hey, I'm ovulating, let's go do this now. That's a lot of pressure, and it's not fun anymore at that point. And so we had decided that we were gonna take a vacation with our friends and go to Cancun, and just, like, have a good time and try to enjoy each other. And then we were gonna decide what to do at that point. I wasn't willing to stop trying altogether, but it was kind of like, okay, if we don't conceive by our trip, then we'll take a break because of the whole Zika thing. We would have to put it off. And so that next month, I wasn't testing. I knew I was going out of town on a business trip, and so I just didn't even test that month. I didn't test for ovulation or anything. But during that second miscarriage, we found out why I was not able to keep the pregnancies, because I wasn't really having a problem conceiving, which was good. I was just having a hard time keeping them. So we figured out that my progesterone levels were low, and my doctor prescribed me progesterone in order to start taking for the next hopeful pregnancy. So I didn't test, but if you've ever been trying to conceive, you kind of learn what your cycle looks like, and you learn when you probably start, or when you're probably ovulating. And so I still started taking the medication as if there was potential that I could have been pregnant. And I started testing at like 9 days post-ovulation, 9 DPO, if any of you trying to conceive ladies. I always see that stuff and it makes me laugh. Anyway. And so I tested early just because if I were to find out that I was pregnant, I would need to let my doctor know ASAP so that we could test my numbers and make sure my progesterone was where it was supposed to be and make sure that this was something that we could keep this time. And so literally that next cycle after the second miscarriage, we conceived again. And I remember it was, again, complete elation and just super excitement. But this time I was more scared than anything. And as you know now, that pregnancy has been successful so far, and we're now 12 weeks. But it's been really like probably one of the harder 12 weeks of my life. I've lived in just complete fear every single day that I'm going to lose it. When people ask me how I'm feeling or how I'm doing, I have a really hard time talking about it, and I don't really want. It's almost like I hate when people ask me how I'm doing, and that's terrible because I know that they're asking out of care and love and concern. And so I don't get mad at them about it. I just typically don't want to talk about it because I've just lived in this fear for 12 weeks of, well, like 9 weeks, because I found out at 3 weeks that I was pregnant. But I've just lived in this fear, and I've walked on eggshells, and I've been scared to go to the bathroom and wipe for fear of there being blood. I get scared when I don't have symptoms. I would much rather feel sick every single day to know that everything's growing the way it's supposed to be. And when I don't have symptoms, it stresses me out. I remember when we went into our first ultrasound at 6 weeks, 6 days, I was so scared. Like, just the extreme anxiety, and just complete fear of like, what if we go in there and there's not a baby? And thank God there was, and there was a heartbeat, and you still really couldn't tell what it was at that point. It was just like a little blob. But like that gave me a little bit of peace of mind, and I was okay for a few weeks. And then about a week before our second ultrasound at 10 weeks, 3 days, well, actually it was supposed to be 10 weeks, 6 days. But I started getting that extreme anxiety again, and I just told myself, like, I'm just gonna scoot the appointment up because I don't want to live in this anxiety-ridden, like, just constant, I don't even know how to explain it. It's just fear. So we pushed the appointment up 3 days and went in, and again, it's that same, like, just heart beating out of your chest, feeling like you can't breathe, just being super scared. And I remember when I laid down on the table and she put the Doppler or whatever ultrasound thing on my stomach, she's like, all right, just give me a second to figure out what I'm seeing here. And that scared me because I thought she didn't see anything. And so she was kind of like just trying to find something. And if you've ever lost a baby and then had a pregnancy, like, you'll understand what that fear is of just unknowing. Like, just not knowing is the hardest part. And so as soon as she found the baby and I could see, like, it actually looked like a baby and it was wiggling around, and there was a very loud and clear heartbeat. Like, I didn't even cry like I'm crying right now. It was just, I don't even know how to explain it. Happiness kind of set in that it was real. This was actually a real child, because before I wasn't telling myself this, but in the grief process, it can be weird. And, you know, one of the things, like, with early losses is, oh, it wasn't even a baby yet. Like, how could you care so much about something that, like, wasn't actually a baby? But, like, to me, it was, you know, and to every other woman that's lost an early pregnancy, they are babies. And so to actually get to see it on a screen, I'll show you.
I'm horrible at this stuff, McKinley.
Is that his hand? What is that?
Yep, these are legs down here. That's a hand floating by. Yep, feet kicking.
Oh my gosh.
Little baby's rocking out already.
It was just super fun and super cool, and we got to see the doctor after, and we did our whole, you know, all the gamut of blood work, and everything came back good. And she had said, so I was 10 weeks, 3 days measuring, 11 weeks, 1 day. And I don't think that there's ever really a safe zone in pregnancy anymore. I used to hear 12 weeks is like the magical, you know, number. And while your risk of miscarriage dramatically reduces, it's not gone completely. And so like, I know I'll live with a certain level of fear this whole 9 months. But what I'm trying to do every single day now is like insert more joy and celebration in there instead of just all this scaredness. Because I want to be able to enjoy it. I don't want to be miserable this whole pregnancy. I don't want to get annoyed when people ask me how I'm doing or when they want to see belly pictures. Like I've taken 2 and I've sent them to my husband only, and I don't know if or when I plan on sharing those or at any point out to the public, because living in the public eye, our whole life is on display, and so we don't get very much just to ourselves. So right now I'm enjoying being able to keep that to ourselves. I'm sure I will eventually share with you guys what I look like, because it will be hard to hide it. Right now there's really not much to see. But anyway, my doctor said, you're kind of in the clear. If anything were to happen at this point, it would be very abnormal. And that, for whatever reason, gave me a lot of peace, because like I said, I know the risk isn't gone completely. But to know that it would be very out of the norm for it to happen at this point has just allowed me, for whatever reason, that's kind of the assurance that I needed. And I even have like an at-home Doppler to like find the heartbeat, and I haven't been able to find it yet, but that hasn't made me freak out like, oh my gosh, the baby's not there. I just know that it's hard to find on your own, and like I'm okay with it. And while I still don't love talking about how I feel and stuff, I feel like I'm getting better at having some excitement and being able to make plans and whatever. I don't even know. All I know is that this whole thing is very confusing and it's hard. And if you've ever been in this situation, like, or if you're currently in this situation, seriously, no, you're not alone. I feel crazy some days because, like, literally still, I'm almost 12 weeks and I still like get urges to test. I haven't tested since before I went to the doctor, the first time. But like, I still think, oh, I have pregnancy tests, like I should just take it just to make sure. But the reality is, even if I had a miscarriage right now or 2 weeks ago, my numbers would probably still be high enough to give a pregnancy or a positive result anyway. So it's just like crazy, like the crazy things that go through our head. And I know that I'm not the only one that experiences it. I remember early on, and I'm sure Jeffrey probably still feels similarly, like if I went to the bathroom, if we were out somewhere or even at home and took a little bit longer than expected, he thought that I was going to come out saying that I was bleeding. So I know that I'm not the only one that feels some sort of way. I'm very grateful that Jeffrey has kind of been the voice of reason in this situation. He told me, like, I remember at our first and second ultrasound, I was like, aren't you scared? Like, aren't you nervous about what's going to happen? And he said, no, because I'm not choosing to see this pregnancy as anything other than a successful, healthy pregnancy. And I thank God every day that he is that way, because when I'm super psycho or super scared or super like in my own feelings about it, I know that he's not feeling that way, and it just makes me feel better. I don't know. Sometimes I get frustrated because I feel like he doesn't understand. But I think men in general just have a different outlook on it. Jeffrey told me one of the times I miscarried, like, I remember I got really upset with him because one of his friends was like really sick, and he legitimately cried in the car to me about it. And I got pissed. I was like, you're gonna cry about some dude at your work when we literally just lost like an actual baby? And he said, Caitlin, like, you bond with that thing immediately, and Jeffrey didn't have that. And at that point I kind of started to get it, like, this is a different experience for both of us, and I can't expect him to have the same reaction or the same feelings about it as I do. I know that he cares and hates the way that I feel, but it's just different, that's all. Whew, that's hard to talk about. So I kind of just wanted to say all of that to say that this is freaking hard. And I appreciate that all of you are so excited and you already love this baby more than, you know, I ever thought that you guys care. And it's amazing. And it's funny because my store does this really, like my online store does this really funny thing where it will tell you how people find your store. And the other day I was looking at it and it said somebody, you know, people were searching dogs and house hippos mom expecting. And I never thought that I'd live in a world where people were Googling if I was pregnant. It's just so weird to me, but to know that so many people are like praying and thinking about us and hoping for a positive and successful and healthy pregnancy, like it actually helps. And that was one of the reasons I shared as early as I did, because a lot of people were like, oh, you should wait until 12 weeks to share. Like that's just been the misnomer for the last 700 years. And I think that that's insane. While it's super scary and while I have no idea from one day to the next, like how I'm gonna feel, me actively working on not living in fear means that I'm choosing to celebrate it and I'm choosing to have some enjoyment with it. And part of that is sharing it with other people and almost breathing life into our pregnancy, giving validation to the fact that I am growing a human inside of me and it's freaking hard. What's wrong, Kilo? And just that the topic of miscarriage is so taboo and so swept under the rug, and it makes me sick that women can't talk about it and that it's not real if it's not 12 weeks. Like all of it makes me angry. And so this is like my way of not living in that and not choosing to follow along with society's standards of what that looks like. So that's why I shared early. And again, because I know all of you guys are just as excited, you know, and want to be a part of this pregnancy, and that makes me super happy and feel super loved and supported and cared for. And I'll share things as I can and as I feel comfortable with it. So I hope that if I ignore your question or if I don't respond to a comment that's related to it, that you don't get offended. It's just I'm not in the headspace yet to maybe answer that particular question. We've decided we're not doing genetic testing because we're going to have this baby whether it has any sort of developmental problems or not. And yeah, so I hope that this maybe clears some things up, and I appreciate you guys for being patient with me and being on this journey with us. It's hard. Yeah, dude, it's hard. So I think we're gonna have a little peanut butter party to celebrate because Mama needs some lovies. And lovies sometimes come in the form of watching my dogs eat peanut butter. Please, come on. We're gonna have a little peanut butter party. Lotta, why is your nose so dirty? Can you please sit down? A good girl, Sally girl. Sit down, little girl. Good girl. Good girl, Kilo. Hey, sweet kitty butt. Jackie Bob, sit down. Sit. Good boy. Good boy, bunnies. I'll do another video probably shortly, maybe. I give myself too much credit. it'll probably take me weeks. But I'll do another video explaining, or at least talking about having 6 dogs and being pregnant. There is definitely it's different than I imagine it would be without dogs or with only one. And kind of what we hope that it will look like when we have the child, and kind of what we plan on doing, and how our life, we hope, will look once we have our child. One thing I can say for certain is that we will still have 6 dogs when we have our baby, and we won't be getting rid of any of them. And yeah, we'll figure out the rest as we go.